Hi everybody, welcome to part 2 of the $60 Honda Trail 90 fix-up project. If you're not familiar with this project, I encourage you to check out part 1. You can see that right here. Last time I talked a little bit about how I came to acquire this beautiful machine. I found it a couple of weeks ago at a yard sale. Pretty much as it sat, it had been neglected, laying in a field for a couple of decades, and I believe the last time it was actually operable was about 25 years ago. It's unknown to me exactly why someone took the initiative to dismantle it and take it apart, but hopefully today we'll start to unravel some of that mystery. I'm going to focus now on the engine, which I believe is one of the more important systems of the machine. It looks like this engine hasn't been operated in a very long time. It also seems that someone has taken the engine apart and then very sloppily put it back together again, because although it is pretty much one piece, none of the bolts and nuts that hold it all together are tight. They're all just loose and you can move the cylinder head with your hand, which is never a good thing. So what I want to do next is get this engine up on the operating table, start taking it apart, and determine whether or not it's still a viable power plant for this beautiful piece of motorcycling history. Doctor, I need 90 cc's of vintage Honda motorcycle power. Stat. So let's dive in and see what it's going to take to bring this engine back to life. Looking at the clutch cover here, I don't think it's been fooled with. These screws seem to be tight, and when I look under here, there's still caked on dirt from the last time this machine was operable. So since nobody tried to fool with the clutch cover, I'm going to leave it on for the time being. Swinging around to the other side, there's evidence that somebody thought it was a very good idea to take off the alternator side cover. All of these screws have been removed, along with the internals of the 2-speed gearbox. If I attempt to turn the flywheel, I can gather some very useful information. The fact that it turns, even though it doesn't turn very much, tells me that the main bearings are still likely in usable shape. However, since the engine doesn't want to turn any more than a couple of degrees, that means there's likely some definite problems in this top end. Probably a seized piston or something of that nature. These 4 nuts, which sandwich this whole top end to the case of the engine, are only hand tight, and as I've mentioned in the past, the head is loose, and when I turn the flywheel it wiggles a little bit. So the first thing I'm going to tear into is this top end. I'm going to take off these 4 nuts and have a look at the top end. This engine has been sitting out in a field for over 2 decades without a carburetor, so the intake port right here has just been collecting rainwater, which I don't think is very good for it. Okay, I'll take this off. And now I can see the rocker arms. To remove the head, I think I need to disconnect the cam chain from the cam sprocket. The cam sprocket is connected to the camshaft behind here, so I need to remove this ignition advance mechanism. Let's see if this wants to play nice and come off. Oh yeah. This is old-fashioned ignition advance, before the days of digital maps and capacitive discharge ignitions. With that piece off, now I should be able to remove this piece right here. When separating motorcycle cases, it's very tempting to just drive a screwdriver in there to push these apart. This is quick and effective, however, you run the risk of damaging the gasket mating surface on either of these pieces. So I'm going to look for an alternative method of taking this part off of the head. Let's try putting a screw right here, putting the screwdriver like this and giving it a little tap with the friendly hammer. And that looks like it will work. And there is the end of the camshaft, and this is the cam sprocket, and you can see the cam chain as well. I don't think whoever tried to work on this engine actually got this far. I think they took off these bolts and started pulling on the head. It didn't want to come off, so they gave up at that point because this piece that I just took off felt like it hadn't been removed in some time. Next I'll try to loosen these, which normally would be tough because the engine would just spin, but lucky for me the engine is seized and they should be easy to remove. And I've hit a bit of a snag. I can't remove the camshaft because this cam lobe right here won't go past this rocker arm, which I've loosened up fully, and I can't bring it up anymore so it will clear the cam lobe. There are two easy solutions to this. I could just rotate the engine until this cam lobe wasn't in the way, but the engine is seized. I could also just open up this intake valve with a screwdriver. However, the intake valve is seized and I can't move it. So I'm going to pour a little bit of oil into this rainwater catch trough, also known as the intake port, and hopefully loosen up this intake valve. I found this in my chemical stash, and that's pretty much what I want to do, so I'm going to use it for this application. I want to knock her loose. This is like the Tin Man. Everything has been neglected and rusted for so long. Ah, that oil must feel really good in there. I have never dealt with a frozen solid intake valve before. That is stuck, ladies and gentlemen. So I'll just let the knocker loose percolate in there for a little while. Well, I've been trying for some time now to unstick this intake valve to no avail. I've used the lubrication, I've used the screwdriver like this, trying to wiggle it free. I'm not going to admit to any tapping on here. However, that wouldn't be unheard of. So I thought I was at a standstill. However, lucky for me, this engine is designed so that the pivots for these rocker arms can be easily removed. So I can just pull this out, and hopefully that will give me the clearance I need to take out that camshaft. So now I'll give this a pull and hope for the best. And that's how you extract a camshaft. Now that the cam chain is no longer tying the head to the rest of the engine, I should be able to just pull this off. And I wonder what I will find. And that is a piston that has not moved in some time. I think I will turn it upright and give it a nice little drink of oil to start loosening things up. And while I wait for that, I think I will have another look at the cylinder head. Doesn't look too bad from this angle. Ouch! That doesn't look good. And this is probably why that valve doesn't want to move. There's just a caked on layer of corrosion. So I'll go to work on cleaning that up as well. Feel bad for this poor old girl. It's okay, sweetie. Nothing bad's gonna happen to you now. Yummy. Now that's looking a little better. Let's go to the other side now and see if we can make a valve move. No, still solid, but that's okay. We'll let that oil work its magic. I just realized that the design of this head makes it really easy to remove the valve spring. I can just slip a wrench in here like this, and if I can get some pressure on it, I should be able to remove these little clips. And with the valve spring off, I should be able to get more oil directly where I want it on this valve stem. Well, now unfortunately we just have to wait. I've got oil on the piston, and I've got a nice little oil bath down here on the intake valve stem as well. I put on this lower cover to create a little reservoir for oil, which I've filled up, and I'll just let that oil do its work. I haven't given up on this engine. These Honda motors have great resiliency, and you'd be surprised with what they're capable of. But that's all for now. I'll check in with you later. Thanks for watching.